Okay, today we're talking about multiplying complex numbers. So basically, you need to handle I in different forms, like you're going to see it in different situations that we have so far. You got to learn some properties of I that, again, just how to handle it. So calculations, that also is covered in handling it in different forms. So let's just look at one. This is a simple FOIL question. It just happens to throw an I in there. Act like I is a normal variable until the very end. And then at the end, if you ever see an I squared, fix it. Turn it into a, yes, as somebody's pointing out, -1. All right, so go ahead and multiply this puppy out. See what you get. And if you see an I squared at the end, you should know what to do. I'll pause while you try that. Okay, so here's how this should have gone. You should have said firsts, 3 times 1 is 3. Outsides, insides last, right? Outsides would be these two, which makes 1 times -I is -1I, but technically it's just -I. You can put a 1 there, it's okay. Insides, 6I. And now for the big one, the lasts, which brings a 2I and a -I together and makes 2I squared. And is it negative or positive? Negative. Negative 2I squared, because there's a negative already in the problem. Okay, now you put them all together and you go, okay, 3 and that can go together just like normal variables. Don't mess with those and make them I squareds or anything. This is just 5I. And then this last number becomes critical, that you replace that with a -1 and you got +2, because this -2 times -1 makes +2. Then it's 5 plus 5I. And how many of you remembered to put the I part last? Excellent, because it's easy to put it backwards and say 5I plus 5. The imaginary part is supposed to be last. Depends on how tough your teacher's going to grade your test, whether or not you'd lose 5% or 10%, or maybe if we're like nobody seems to care, then we'll leave it. Even if it's backwards, it's okay. But I know math-wise you should know this. The imaginary part is supposed to be last. Well, let's move on to another one. This one's simpler. Same concept. Except I'm hoping 80% of you pull this one off. When you're done, turn it my way. I'll tell you if you're doing it right or not. Pause while you try this. Here's what you should have done. You should have said 4I, and this would have been so easy to mess up. -5I squared. Then you replace that with a -1, which makes 4I minus 5 times -1, which makes then 4I plus 5, and it'd be so easy to leave it that way. But you've learned you're supposed to write them with the imaginary part last. The complex number is supposed to have the real part first and the imaginary part last. There's your final answer. Let's move on. Oh, come on. We just did one like that. That's no big deal. How about that one? Thought a second. Whew, this is really hard to do in my head. All right, I'm not going to check you on these. I'm going to ask you in a moment to compare it with the person sitting next to you. I'll do these 2 rows, and the far 2 rows. And you're always in the 3 group, so that works out. Okay, I'm going to show you how this one. Actually, first compare with the person next to you and see if you guys got the same thing. I'll pause for a second while you try that. So here's the process. First of all, hopefully none of you got trapped with the that squared and that squared thing. It does not work. You've got to instead do 2 minus 3I. Squared means times itself. And then it's just first, outside, inside, last. First would make 4. Outside would make -6I. Inside, another -6I. And then the last would make +9I squared. And then I put it all together and say 4 minus 12I plus 9I squared. And that is the most common wrong answer. What's wrong with it? Yes? Make that a -1. Excellent. So then that's really a -9, which goes with the 4 and makes a -5. And here's probably the most the most common wrong answer from here. Negative 12i, and then that would be negative 9, and that would be 5. Make negative 5. And why is that wrong? Yes? Imaginaries go last. So that goes over here, and you get negative 5 minus 12i. Okay? Any other last questions on that one? Okay. So, let's move on. That is going to be the same thing, and I think that's it. That's all we need to know. Let's just get you to your homework. And I know that's ridiculously early to get to your homework, but hey, that's good. So I'm assigning all on the homework, and I probably should take some time later to grade something, one of your older assignments, because I kind of behind in putting in stuff in the grade book in here. But that is a very easy day, and tomorrow we'll do some more review for a test on this stuff on Friday. That's all I got for the video for today.